When the pieces start falling, plans, routines, titles, relationships, there's a moment where you realize you can't hold the old shape of your life together anymore. The phone is face down, the room is too quiet, and your thoughts loop like a broken reel. You try to force clarity, but everything keeps slipping. Then something changes. The grip loosens, the noise drops, and the fight to control every outcome runs out of fuel. In that stillness, you notice space where there used to be pressure. And in that space, new options appear. Fast, clean, and unexpected. Have you ever felt like everything you've built, everything you thought defined you, is suddenly slipping through your fingers? Like the ground beneath you has vanished, and you are standing in a void that is both terrifying and strangely magnetic? That feeling, the one that keeps you awake at night, whispering that nothing will ever be the same, is not a sign of failure. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful catalysts for transformation you will ever encounter. What most people don't realize is that manifestation, the very reality you desire, often accelerates most after emotional collapse. And it is precisely in these moments of disorientation, despair, and surrender that your life begins to realign in ways you could never have orchestrated through sheer effort or willpower. Emotional collapse is not weakness. It is a sacred reset. The mind, body, and soul reach a point of such intense pressure that the old structures, the identity, beliefs, and narratives that no longer serve you, cannot hold. And when they collapse, something extraordinary happens. Resistance weakens. The energy you spent trying to control every outcome dissipates. The ego, which has tirelessly tried to protect you through fear and planning, finally steps aside, allowing a new version of you to emerge, often in ways that feel surreal or even magical. Many seekers, especially those on the path of spiritual self-development, describe this moment as a kind of dark night of the soul. But the truth is, this darkness is not an end, it is an invitation. It is the universe's way of saying, I cannot show you your next reality until you release the one you are clinging to so tightly. When you are in the midst of emotional collapse, every thought, every memory, every fear feels magnified. You may feel paralyzed by grief, regret, or anxiety. Perhaps your relationships no longer feel the same, your career feels stagnant, or your sense of purpose has dissolved into uncertainty. And yet, paradoxically, it is in this very state of vulnerability that the quantum mechanics of reality begin to shift in your favor. This is because manifestation is not about chasing or striving. It is about alignment. And alignment requires the old you to fall away. Only when your resistance is exhausted and your emotional armor has been stripped down to raw awareness, can the new frequencies of your desires settle in. Think of it as the pressure required to form a diamond. The intense heat and compression do not destroy the carbon, they transform it. Likewise, your collapse does not destroy your potential, it crystallizes it. In the moments when you feel most empty, most broken, the energetic field that surrounds you becomes malleable. Your thoughts and emotions, which previously had to fight against entrenched patterns of fear and limitation, suddenly flow with clarity and receptivity. Suddenly, the vision you had for your life, once obscured by the chatter of your mind and the weight of past conditioning, becomes accessible. And the remarkable part is that this happens not because you are forcing it, but because you have unwittingly created the perfect conditions for reality to respond. Many people resist this process. They panic, they try to patch the old self back together, they cling desperately to control, hoping that if they act correctly, everything will return to normal. But the universe rarely works in reverse. The faster you accept, surrender, and even embrace the breakdown, the faster the acceleration of your manifestation occurs. This is a subtle yet profound shift in consciousness. It is no longer about doing more, trying harder, or fixing yourself. It is about letting go completely, trusting that the collapse is simply the universe's way of reorganizing your reality around a higher vibration, a version of yourself that is more aligned with the desires you have been silently calling into existence. There is a sacred rhythm to this process. It begins with resistance, the mind fights, the body reacts, and the emotions overwhelm. Then comes acceptance, the quiet acknowledgement that the old ways no longer serve. And then, often unexpectedly, comes the awakening, a deep, unshakable sense that your life is not ending but shifting. In that moment, when you are no longer attached to outcomes, when you are not bound by fear or expectation, your energy naturally rises, your vibration changes, and doors that were previously invisible begin to open. Synchronicities, opportunities, and insights flow to you with astonishing speed, and the reality you had only imagined suddenly feels within reach. The beauty of this process is that it teaches you one of the most overlooked truths of manifestation. It is not about effort, it is about alignment. You do not have to chase your dreams with force. You do not have to struggle, hustle, or manipulate circumstances to bring them into reality. The universe is not punishing you, it is simply waiting for you to release what no longer serves you. And often the only way to release it is through emotional collapse. It is the collapse that dislodges the mental and emotional blocks, shatters limiting beliefs, and creates a vacuum. And as every spiritual teacher and quantum manifestation expert will tell you, nature abhors a vacuum. That vacuum is immediately filled with the energy of your desires, your intentions, and your new identity. It is also important to recognize the paradoxical nature of this experience. Collapse feels like loss, but it is, in truth, the precursor to gain. It feels like emptiness, but it is a fertile field ready for planting new seeds. It feels uncontrollable, but it is the universe's way of aligning your internal state with external reality. In fact, those who have mastered manifestation often speak of their most accelerated periods occurring immediately after personal breakdowns. They describe moments when old relationships end, when careers dissolve, or when their sense of self fractures entirely, and in the weeks and months that follow, opportunities, synchronicities, and manifestations appear at an almost magical pace. If you are listening to this now and you are in that space of collapse, know this: you are not alone and you are not failing. What feels like a void is actually a doorway. What feels like chaos is actually a clearing. And what feels like the end is actually the beginning of your most profound alignment yet. The moment you surrender to it, the universe begins to orchestrate your reality in ways that you could not have planned or predicted. The key is trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, and trust that your collapse is the necessary precursor to your next reality. You may wonder how long this process takes or how you will know when you have reached the other side. The truth is, there is no fixed timeline because manifestation responds to vibration, not clocks. The signs are subtle: moments of clarity, sudden inspiration, intuitive nudges, or a sense of peace amid chaos. The key is to remain present, to observe without judgment, and to allow the transformation to unfold naturally. Every tear, every pang of fear, every moment of despair is actually a signal that your energy is clearing. And when that energy clears, what you have been longing for, whether it is love, abundance, purpose, or freedom, can finally flow to you with less resistance than ever before. So, if you are feeling broken, disoriented, or lost, take a deep breath. Feel the collapse fully without resistance. Honor the emotions that surface, but do not cling to them. See them as the universe's way of rearranging your inner world, creating space for the new self to emerge. And remember this: manifestation does not require struggle, it requires surrender. It does not require control, it requires trust. And it does not require perfection, it requires presence. In that surrender, in that trust, in that presence, your life begins to shift in ways that are often so rapid, so profound, and so aligned that looking back, you will realize that the moment you felt you were losing everything was actually the moment your manifestation began to accelerate. When we talk about emotional collapse, it's easy to view it only as a personal crisis, as a failure of coping or resilience. Yet from a deeper quantum perspective, this collapse is anything but a setback. It is a reset point, a rare and sacred moment where the very structure of your internal world becomes flexible, fluid, and receptive. Imagine your emotional and mental framework as a dense lattice, built over years of habits, beliefs, and conditioned responses. This lattice is strong, it holds you together, but it also restricts movement, blocks flow, and keeps you bound to timelines that no longer serve your higher purpose. When collapse occurs, this lattice weakens. The rigidity dissolves. The subconscious mind, which has been carrying the hidden programming of fear, doubt, and limitation, suddenly becomes permeable. And it is in this permeability that manifestation begins to accelerate, almost as if the universe itself has been waiting for the lattice to soften before sending your desires into physical reality. To understand why this happens, we need to look at the energetic dynamics of collapse. When a person reaches a state of intense emotional overwhelm, their usual mechanisms of resistance, control, overthinking, distraction, fail. The ego, which normally filters experience and protects identity, loses its grip. The mind stops trying to force outcomes and instead enters a state of surrender, even if unconscious. This is a crucial point. Surrender is not laziness, weakness, or giving up. It is a recalibration of energy. In quantum terms, it is the collapse of interference patterns, the mental and emotional vibrations that once distorted the field of possibility. When those patterns dissolve, the energy you radiate becomes coherent, harmonized, and aligned with the higher probability realities that were always waiting for you. The collapse creates a vacuum, a space in which your old self, with all its attachments and limitations, no longer exists in the same way. And nature, as it always does, abhors a vacuum. That space does not remain empty. It is immediately filled with the potential of your new self, a version that is not defined by fear, obligation, or past identity. This is why spiritual teachers often speak of periods of deep despair as precursors to rapid growth. The very act of being emotionally stripped down forces you to confront the core of who you are and to release the stories that no longer serve you. And it is this release, this weakening of resistance, that accelerates manifestation in ways that effort, planning, or even intention alone cannot achieve. Think about how often in life we cling to outcomes, trying to mold circumstances to fit the desires of the old self. We push, we manipulate, we hustle, believing that manifestation requires action, persistence, and control. But in reality, the universe responds to vibrational alignment, not to forced effort. When collapse occurs, the need to control fades. The old patterns of struggle dissolve, leaving space for alignment. The shift is subtle at first. You may notice a clarity in thought, a sense of detachment from past worries, or even an almost imperceptible pull toward new opportunities. But gradually, the effects compound. Your emotional field, once burdened by fear and expectation, begins to resonate at a higher frequency, naturally attracting the experiences, people, and synchronicities that align with your evolved self. Another reason manifestation accelerates after collapse is that the emotional intensity itself amplifies your vibrational signal. Fear, grief, despair, these emotions are heavy, yes, but they are also charged energy. When experienced fully and allowed to move through you, this energy does not dissipate aimlessly, it reorganizes. The collapse is like shaking a snow globe. The particles, the potentials of your reality, become mobile, ready to settle in new patterns. If you resist, you trap the particles in chaos. But if you surrender, allow, and flow with the energy, they settle in alignment with your truest desires. In this way, collapse is not destruction, it is kinetic transformation. It moves the energy of your life into motion, preparing the field for rapid manifestation. It is also worth considering the role of identity in this process. The old self, the self that has lived according to societal expectations, personal fears, and conditioned limitations, often unconsciously sabotages manifestation. This self clings to scarcity, doubts possibility, and interprets reality through the lens of what should be rather than what could be. Emotional collapse dismantles this self, stripping it of its power. And in its absence, the new self, a self that is free, aligned, and unburdened, can emerge. This emergence is rarely gradual. It is often sudden, unexpected, and dramatic. And it is precisely because the old identity has been weakened that the new reality can appear so swiftly and clearly. Many seekers who have experienced accelerated manifestation after collapse describe it as a kind of invisible hand guiding them. Opportunities, insights, and synchronicities seem to appear without effort, as if the universe itself is orchestrating events on their behalf. They notice relationships shifting, doors opening that were previously closed, and desires manifesting faster than their mind could have imagined. And this is not luck. It is the natural outcome of energetic alignment following emotional surrender. The collapse is a kind of spiritual clearing, removing all that obstructs your vibrational resonance. Once the clutter is gone, the energy moves freely, and reality responds almost instantly. One of the most profound aspects of this process is that it teaches trust. When collapse occurs, you are confronted with uncertainty, a void where the old structure used to be. And yet, as you learn to navigate this void without resistance, you cultivate an unshakable faith in the flow of life. You come to understand that the universe is always supporting you, even when it seems chaotic or unknowable. And this faith itself is a powerful magnet for manifestation. The vibrational signal of trust, of alignment, of surrender, is far more potent than effort, planning, or struggle. In essence, the universe can only respond to what is radiated from within. Emotional collapse, paradoxically, is the moment when your inner signal becomes clearest. It is important to note that not every collapse will feel mystical or enlightening immediately. Often the first phase is disorientation, grief, or even despair. The mind resists, questions, and fears. But the very act of feeling these emotions fully without trying to fix them is the mechanism through which energy begins to realign. Over time, as resistance diminishes, subtle shifts become noticeable. Sudden clarity of thought, inspiration, intuition, and a sense of possibility that was previously obscured. And gradually, the manifestations you have been calling in begin to appear, not because of your effort, but because the energy you are now radiating is in harmony with the field of infinite potential. To frame it in a way that might resonate, your emotional collapse is like a storm at sea. At first, it feels terrifying, chaotic, and destructive. But beneath the turbulence, currents are shifting, aligning, and reorganizing the ocean's patterns. The storm clears, and suddenly the waters become navigable in ways that were impossible before. In the same way, your collapse reorganizes the currents of your life, aligning you with experiences, opportunities, and manifestations that you could never have accessed while clinging to the old self. So, if you are listening to this and you feel the weight of collapse pressing down on you, know that this is not a punishment. It is not a signal that you have failed or that life is conspiring against you. Rather, it is a profound and necessary recalibration. The old self, the old reality, must dissolve to make space for what is coming. And in the vacuum that is left, the energy of your desires, the alignment of your soul, and the acceleration of manifestation are already moving into place, quietly, unseen, but powerfully. The key is to remain present, to observe, and to allow. To feel without resistance. To trust the process even when it feels uncomfortable or frightening. Because every tear, every pang of despair, every moment of uncertainty is actually a signal of movement, of clearing, of energetic reconfiguration. The collapse is not the end. It is the threshold, the sacred point at which your old limitations are released, and your life begins to respond to the vibration of your higher self. And in that space of surrender, of openness, and of trust, manifestation accelerates, not gradually but profoundly, in alignment with the new frequency of the you who has emerged from the collapse. As you move deeper into the process of collapse, you begin to realize that what is really happening is the death of the old self. The self that was built on fear, obligation, attachment, and the relentless need for control no longer serves you, and the collapse strips it away layer by layer. This old self was not inherently bad. It was a necessary construct, a protective mechanism that carried you through survival, limitations, and conditioning. But it is no longer compatible with the expanded reality you are stepping into. The moment you start to feel the old identity loosening, you may experience fear, grief, even panic. After all, it is the loss of the familiar, the dissolution of the patterns that once made life predictable. Yet it is precisely this death that is the gateway to rapid manifestation, because the old self was the barrier keeping your desires at arm's length. The contrast between the old self and the new self is fundamental to understanding why manifestation accelerates after collapse. The old self operates from resistance, from scarcity, and from the mental habits that prioritize fear over alignment. It is constantly measuring reality against a standard of lack. I don't have enough, I'm not enough, life is hard. The new self, however, is a reflection of your higher vibrational potential. It is free from judgment, it radiates trust, and it understands the principles of alignment instinctively. When the old self dies, when the collapse dissolves the grip of fear, doubt, and limiting beliefs, the new self does not emerge fully formed immediately, but the conditions for its acceleration are established. This is why many spiritual practitioners describe manifestation as happening almost effortlessly after periods of intense breakdown. The old patterns no longer interfere with the signal you are transmitting to the universe. The process of letting go is rarely linear. It is messy, nonlinear, and often uncomfortable. You may find yourself clinging to fragments of the old identity, reliving old fears, or doubting the reality of change. These moments are natural. They are the mind's last attempt to assert control. Yet each time you allow yourself to surrender a little more, to feel without resisting, the new self becomes more visible. It shows itself in subtle ways: a shift in perspective, a sudden sense of clarity, a resonance with experiences that previously felt out of reach. It begins to inhabit the space left vacant by the old self, and as it grows, your ability to manifest in alignment with your highest potential accelerates. One of the most remarkable aspects of this transformation is how quickly your relationship with reality changes. The old self interpreted events through a lens of limitation, while the new self interprets events through alignment. Suddenly, what once felt like obstacles appear as opportunities. Synchronicities are no longer rare, they become a natural rhythm of experience. The universe begins to respond not to struggle, but to the clarity, openness, and frequency of your energy. In this way, the death of the old self is not merely a psychological phenomenon, it is a quantum event. By releasing attachment to identity, outcomes, and expectation, you literally shift the probability of your reality, creating pathways for manifestation that were previously inaccessible. It is also important to understand that this shift is deeply emotional as well as spiritual. The collapse of the old self brings intense emotions to the surface: grief for who you were, fear of the unknown, anger at what you have lost, and sometimes even shame or guilt. These feelings are not obstacles, they are signals. They indicate where resistance is still present, where old patterns cling, and where the energy of the old self is still embedded. The key is not to suppress these emotions or analyze them endlessly. The key is to experience them fully, to allow them to move through you without attachment. As you do this, the old self's energy dissolves, and the new self begins to radiate naturally from the core of your being. This is the energy that accelerates manifestation, the energy of alignment, of trust, and of inner freedom. Contrast framing becomes particularly powerful in this stage. As the old self fades, you can begin to see clearly how differently the new self experiences reality. Where the old self reacted to life with fear, the new self responds with curiosity. Where the old self demanded control, the new self surrenders to flow. Where the old self saw scarcity, the new self sees abundance in infinite forms. This contrast is not merely conceptual, it is felt energetically. Your vibration shifts, and with that shift, the world begins to respond in ways that are tangible and immediate. Opportunities, relationships, insights, and resources appear almost magically because your energy no longer repels them through fear, attachment, or expectation. A crucial aspect of this transformation is the recognition that manifestation is not about accumulation or doing. It is about being. The new self exists in alignment with your true desires, not because of effort, but because it has become a natural expression of your inner vibration. The collapse, the death of the old self, is what allows this beingness to emerge. It is the energetic clearing, the liberation from self-imposed limitations, that makes the acceleration of manifestation not just possible, but inevitable. This is why so many people report that their life changed dramatically in the months following a breakdown. They stopped clinging to old identities, they stopped resisting, and suddenly the universe was able to meet them exactly where they were. It is also important to understand that the emergence of the new self is not about perfection or control. It is not about becoming flawless or achieving some idealized version of yourself. Rather, it is about alignment. The new self trusts, flows, and embodies the frequency of what it desires. The old self was attached to outcomes, to expectations, to a narrow sense of identity. The new self knows that reality responds not to striving but to resonance. As you inhabit this resonance, manifestation occurs naturally, almost effortlessly because the resistance that once blocked it has dissolved. This process also reframes failure entirely. The old self feared failure because it equated mistakes with identity. The new self, however, understands that apparent failures are simply data, feedback from the universe about alignment. Each breakdown, each moment of collapse, is actually a step toward higher coherence, a necessary shedding of what no longer serves. In this way, the old self's death is not punishment, it is liberation. It is the pruning of old branches so that the new, vibrant, fertile self can grow freely, manifesting desires in alignment with the highest potential. As this transformation continues, you may begin to notice a kind of effortless synchronicity in your life. Doors open without struggle. Ideas and inspirations flow unbidden. Relationships shift in alignment with your frequency. Opportunities appear that previously seemed impossible. This is the acceleration phase, the direct result of the collapse of the old self and the emergence of the new. It is not forced, it is not manufactured, it is natural. It is the universe responding to a being who has let go, surrendered, and stepped fully into alignment with their own vibrational truth. Ultimately, this is the profound lesson of emotional collapse and the death of the old self. You are not manifesting from lack, effort, or control. You are manifesting from alignment, clarity, and energetic freedom. The collapse is not an end, it is a clearing. The old self does not vanish in vain. It dissolves to make space for the version of you that is fully capable of receiving, radiating, and co-creating your desires. The acceleration you experience after this collapse is not magic. It is physics, it is quantum mechanics, it is energy responding to vibration. And when you embrace this truth, when you allow the old self to die without resistance, your life begins to move in ways that are faster, smoother, and more aligned than you ever thought possible. As you move through the collapse and the emergence of your new self, you may begin to notice subtle yet profound shifts in your experience. Life feels different even if nothing external has changed immediately. The first signs are often internal, a sense of clarity where confusion once reigned, a quiet confidence replacing the anxiety that once drove every decision. Your emotional responses no longer feel automatic. You observe them rather than being swept away. This is the beginning of the acceleration phase, the period where manifestation begins to respond to the vibrational alignment you have cultivated through surrender. Synchronicities become increasingly common. You may meet people who seem to appear exactly when needed, or opportunities that once felt impossible start flowing effortlessly into your path. Small coincidences, which you might have dismissed before, now carry deeper meaning, almost as if reality itself is signaling that your energy is shifting. These signs are not random. They are proof that the universe is realigning to reflect your new frequency. Even dreams can become more vivid, intuitive nudges more frequent, and ideas that once felt distant suddenly feel like immediate guidance. Emotionally, you may notice a lightness that contrasts sharply with the heaviness of collapse. Where once every situation triggered fear, doubt, or resistance, now there is a sense of openness, of possibility. The intensity of your emotions has not disappeared, it has transformed. What was once chaotic energy is now aligned energy, capable of magnetizing what you desire with remarkable precision. Even challenges feel different. They are no longer roadblocks but signals, guiding you toward growth and further alignment. Your relationship with time and effort also begins to shift. Manifestation no longer feels like a struggle or a race. The need to force outcomes diminishes, replaced by a deep trust that reality is reorganizing itself in your favor. The acceleration phase is subtle in its onset, but its effects compound rapidly. Decisions that previously required overthinking now feel intuitive. Actions that once felt heavy or burdensome become effortless. The world responds more fluidly, reflecting the coherence of your energy back to you. Perhaps the most important sign is internal, a sense of alignment with your own being. You no longer feel fractured between who you are and who you want to be.